as a grand or Bhavya Ram temple comes up in Ayodhya, ace journalist Mark Tully. Some are calling it a historic civilizational moment.
The views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal and do not reflect the views of any organization.
Hello and welcome friends to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Namaskar. Now, all eyes are on the Ram Mandir Pran Pratishtha ceremony that will take place in Ayodhya on Monday. As a grand or Bhavya Ram temple comes up in Ayodhya, some are calling it a historic civilizational moment. Others are wondering what will the political fallout be. Now we live, friends, in an age where today's news is tomorrow's history. Public memory is very short, extraordinarily fleeting. So for some of us who are doing journalism in the early 90s, well before the age of breaking news television, what is happening in Ayodhya today is somehow inseparable from what happened in Mumbai all those years ago, or what was then Bombay in 1992. I know there will be those here who may not wish to delve into the past, but 1992, my friends, is not all that long ago. And it is only when we remember the past that we can truly achieve, in my view, peace and reconciliation for the future. So let me ask you a question. Where were you on December 6, 1992, the day when the Babri masjid was demolished? A criminal act, as the Supreme Court has affirmed. I was a young 27-year-old journalist in Mumbai at the Times of India, the old lady of Boribandar as it was called. I had just been appointed the Metro editor and the chief of news service at the Times of India's largest news edition. It was, I must confess, possibly a case of getting too much too soon. A number of my colleagues had been in this profession for several years before me. The challenge, therefore, for me was to prove myself in a newsroom by working just a little bit extra. Now, no, there were no 70-hour weeks in journalism as the Infosys founder Narayan Murthy has suggested, but we did work reasonably hard. December 6th, 1992 was a Sunday. Now, normally Sundays were my day off, a day when I usually played cricket on the Maidans of Mumbai. I had typically planned to play a local cricket match on the 6th of December as well, with the proviso that I would come to office if some major story broke. Now, please appreciate that this was, as I've said earlier, the pre-24/7 TV age, where there was no breaking news pressures. Journalists could actually press the pause button and have a life beyond the news wheel, which is exactly what I had planned. I would play the cricket match and be available to rush to the office, which was luckily not too far away from the Maidan, to cover a story if any big story broke. Now, yes, there was talk pre-December 6th of the build-up that was taking place in Ayodhya, of thousands of car sevaks who had gathered there, and there was a sense, dare I say, of anticipation. At the same time, Ayodhya seemed a world far away from that of Mumbai. The only Mumbai connection really was the fact that a large number of Shiv Sainiks had also boarded trains to Ayodhya to join in the Car Seva. Now, the coverage in Ayodhya itself was being handled by the Times of India's Delhi team. So there was really, the Mumbai office was seen to have a very limited responsibility in covering the Ayodhya story. It is also useful to remember that this was a pre-mobile age as well. So communicating wasn't so easy at all. you couldn't instantly contact someone when a story was happening. It was around noon though that I received a landline call at our cricket club phone line. The club was next to the Maidan, informing me that there had been some trouble in Ayodhya and that I might want to just come to office or swing by office and find out what was happening. By the time I reached office, it was around 1 p.m. By then, the news wires were flashing that parts of the Babri masjid had been demolished by a large group of car sevaks. My first reaction was to wonder what had then happened to all the promises that had been made that the status quo would be maintained, the fact that the BJP leaders had assured the Supreme Court, the VHP, nothing will be done on the disputed site. And what the hell was the local police doing that the masjid had been demolished in this manner? Now, all of this, of course, was, as I said, based on the early information that we were getting. Remember, this is the pre-24/7 news TV age. No breaking news. Doordarshan wasn't reporting anything of what was going on. The wires were electronically sending news feeds through a teleprinter. Please understand, this was the age of a teleprinter in a newsroom. The clattering sound of the machine was perhaps the most familiar sound that we had in a newsroom. We had no visuals or anything of what had actually happened in Ayodhya. In fact, the first grainy pictures of the mosque being demolished came to us through one of these electronic news wires, but only early evening. We had already been issued strict instructions that we must be very careful with any pictures that we were going to use so that nothing is done that will inflame passions. This is pictures to be used in next day's papers. Remember again, there was no live telecast of what was happening in Ayodhya. I keep reiterating this point because I've often wondered what would have happened if there were hundreds of news channels that day in Ayodhya. Could Narasimha Rao, the then Prime Minister, have said, I have no idea, or I had no idea of what was going on in Ayodhya? All we had were the few photographs that we had received from the wire agencies. Now, our task in Mumbai was initially to just get reactions from the political leaders in the city. I remember ringing up two prominent leaders of Mumbai, Pramod Navalkar of the Shiv Sena and Murli Deora of the Congress. Mr. Navalkar said that he had received no information of what had happened in Ayodhya, but if my report was right and the Babri Masjid had been demolished, he was suggesting that it had happened because Hindus saw the masjid as a symbol of Muslim barbarism. Mr. Deora, meanwhile, was playing bridge with one of the chief executives of the Times of India. And he told me this, why are you disturbing me when I am playing a game of cards with your boss? We will talk about all of this later. That was Murli Deora's response. And I'll tell you, a few days later, I even did a front page story. Murli plays bridge, or Mr. Deora plays bridge while Bombay burns. But I'll come to that. Having written the copy for the day, I left home sometime after 7 p.m. A close friend of mine had just got married and I was hosting a dinner for the newly wedded couple at home. But all the conversation on that dinner table was about what was happening in Ayodhya, because by then news had been coming in. There was, of course, no confirmation of the actual timeline of events. Doordarshan was still playing safe and providing very few details. It was a news report around 9:30 in the evening on BBC, which was put out by their long-standing ace journalist Mark Tully, that first enabled us to get a real picture of what was happening in Ayodhya. Tully, or Tully Saab as he was known, was on the spot and reporting in some detail about how a large assembled crowd had suddenly turned violent, how journalists had been attacked, how the police had simply stood by while the BJP's top politicians like L.K. Advani were appearing simply helpless. Now, these are the details that emerged in that conversation, in that news report of Mark Tully. Now, also listening to Sir Tully's broadcast were those living in Mumbai's Mohammad Ali Road, Bhindi Bazaar area of South Mumbai, South Central Mumbai, a Muslim-dominated area. Within an hour of that report, large crowds had begun gathering in this area, shouting anti-government slogans. Remember, there was a Congress government in Maharashtra and a Congress government in Delhi. We sometimes forget these facts. But please note, they were shouting anti-government slogans, not anti-Hindu slogans. At around 11 p.m. in the night, I got a call from a source in that Mohammad Ali area suggesting that I come quickly because trouble was brewing. Our dinner party was cut short. I took a taxi and managed to reach the area, navigating through the large gathered crowds. Within minutes of my reaching there, we saw a crowd encircling a police van. The local Muslim League cooperator of Bhindi Bazaar, Bashir Patel, was on the spot, but even he couldn't control the gathering. A bandh had been called next day, but a few minutes later, stones were pelted in the direction of the police. Suddenly, we heard gunshots near Minara Masjid in the area. The police had been forced to open fire after a wireless van was attacked. Now, Mohammad Ali Road is only a few minutes away from the Times of India office near VT. We still had a little time to report the very latest for the late night edition. So we went back, reported the story, and it was only around 1 a.m. that I finally finished my report. Suddenly, Ayodhya was looking very close to Mumbai. The next morning, as local Muslim groups called for that bandh, Mumbai erupted in large-scale violence. What started off the night before as police versus Muslims would turn into a horrific Hindu-Muslim communal riot. A month later, in January 1993, there would be another even more violent bout of rioting in Mumbai. In March 1993, Mumbai would witness the serial blast, an ISI underworld terror attack of unimaginable proportions. Ayodhya, interestingly, was quiet. Mumbai was caught in a cycle of vicious violence in which more than 1,000 people died. Those 3 months, my friends, were easily the most difficult in my journalistic career. A city I lived and loved dearly was being torn apart. We even brought out a book, When Bombay Burnt in 1993, putting together all our reportage. You should maybe have a look at the book, of which I'm told still there are a few copies available, When Mumbai Burnt. So while India and the world will celebrate the grand Ram Mandir that is being built in Ayodhya, I hope someone somewhere will also pray and grieve for those who lost their loved ones in the post-Ayodhya riots in Mumbai. A consecration of a temple can be celebrated, but never forget that it was built on the debris, the desecration of a mosque. That was a criminal act for which those responsible have not been prosecuted. In fact, dare I say, are being rewarded, even feted. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind. Namaskar.